Colin Morikawa is a real unique story in that he's already won. This is his third win in just over a year as a golf professional. One of the big things is his caddy, J.J. Jakovac, who was a young man out of Napa who played high school golf with Johnny Miller's kids. Very, very good player. Went to Chico State and played junior golf around the area. He played with my son. Played Harding a number of times back in his junior days in the SF City Golf Championship. So I think that's a big thing for him to know the golf course and the weather. Colin played Harding Park about a dozen times before under the current layout. He had a bit of an advantage over players from around the country like Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, even Jordan Spieth.
Golf Smarter number 753. The 2020 PGA Championship, a golf major like nothing we've ever witnessed, with San Francisco native John Abendroth.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, John.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy day to you. We've just finished the PGA Championship. Unbelievable ending.
Well, a great event, great championship. Event. I think a great champion. The golf course came out like a champion. The city did really, really well. And I think everybody connected needs to be very proud with all of the curveballs that were thrown at it, that it turned out great. And I bet their TV ratings were pretty strong with fans not being able to be there, but wanting to see all the excitement.
So there's so many things that I want to talk about this with you, but let's establish why I'm coming to you to talk about, because I don't recap PGA Tour events. You know, we'll talk about majors, but this year is so unique, and everything just was topsy-turvy on this. But I want to bring you on to talk about this because of your history. But let's establish that. Let's talk about that for a minute. You played on PGA, or you've taught. Give me a quick history for you.
Well, I've kind of done a little of each.
Yeah.
I actually started as a regular golfer at Harding when I was like 12, 13 years old. My mom would take us there. I lived about 2 miles from there. And it's kind of a cute story. My mom would load up the station wagon with four neighborhood kids that all went to Aptus Junior High School, the home of Johnny Miller and Ken Venturi, by the way, including Carol Channing. And she would take us to school.
How was her golf game?
I don't know. And then she'd drive out to Harding, make our tea time for the afternoon. She'd pick us up and then take us back out there. So that was the early 60s. And I played high school golf. I played high-level college golf. I was an All-American at Weber State in Ogden, Utah. And then I got my tour card right out of college and played professionally for a handful of years with some to limited successes. That's a whole nother, batch of stories, playing with Lee Trevino and Tom Watson, one round at the New Orleans Open, and did the Monday qualifying thing all over the country, played Australia, New Zealand. And then I've had a couple of golf careers. I've taught, I've helped manage golf courses, and I'm a PGA board member of Northern California. So, I've had a lot of really great experiences in golf, and been a great ride.
And you've been a golf journalist for a long time.
Yeah, and the irony of that is that I was a journalism major in college. I wrote for the high school newspaper. I wrote for the college newspaper. When we would be on a road trip in college, I would call in to the local newspaper, the Ogden Standard Examiner in Utah, and give them the results and give them a little, a paragraph or two. And kind of funny, the guy that I would call it into, who was the sports editor, is a fellow named Guy Yoakum, who now is like one of the lead writers for Golf Digest, and we've stayed in touch over the years, and so it's serendipitous that I would end up as a pseudo journalist in golf, along with my teaching and golf management and playing days as well. So that's been it's fun to think back about those days.
Sure. So you have a really unique perspective on the history of Harding Park over the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I do. And I was also, with my golf management background, in 1999, some family friends and I started a golf management company called Celtic Golf. We ended up owning Franklin Canyon out in Hercules and Plumas Pines Golf Resort up in Gray Eagle. And one of our other goals was to get involved in city leases as they came up. And we actually, out of 25 companies, we were in the finals in the bid to operate Harding. And we were in the finals with Kemper Sports, Jim Colbert Management, the old tour player, and ourselves. And so that was an interesting experience, learning all of the details of what was going to be happening, and doing that. And right around that time, a fellow named John Mccarthy, who passed away a number of years ago, who ran minor league mini tours, they called them. He and I did a $100,000 San Francisco Open 2 years in a row just before it shut down, and it was fun for me to hand a one of those big 4-foot checks to a guy named Aaron Oberholzer, who won it. It was his biggest check at that point. And I had helped him get a job at KNBR before that. And then he was trying to make it, on the tour, but he was scrambling around playing these different mini tours. So that was a fun experience. But I've seen and been around Harding for a lot of their trials and tribulations and their successes.
It's interesting because every time they would do a shot from behind the golfer looking down the line on the 11th hole, the par 3, and you'd see a building right behind there. That was my dorm room at San Francisco State. So I kept going, and I was even getting texts from friends going, do you know anybody at Mary Ward Hall where we can go and watch from the roof? It's like, in the year that I lived there, I never once walked onto the golf course because I didn't play golf until 25 years later. So I never, but of course, people in the dorm, college, they hop the fence in the middle of the night. We know.
Well, I'll date myself a little bit. The years that I was playing Harding, they were building that building, so I watched that building go up. And my brothers went to Lowell High School right next door, where I went to Lincoln. Up the hill, it's very, like I say, serendipitous with this major golf championship coming there. So,
yeah. So, but you've seen it really go downhill. You've seen the course in terrible shape as well, as this revitalization that brings it back to being a gem on the PGA.
Yeah,
Tour.
and again, I've seen it kind of through the whole span where. I when I was in my teens, I worked in the golf shop for Fred Venturi, Ken's father. That was, some of my first real golf on an 18-hole golf course. I remember, I think one of the downfalls that people either fail to remember or was in 1976, there was a citywide strike of workers in San Francisco. And the golf course, which is operated by the city and owned by the city recreation department, was shut down. But people still climbed the fence, went through holes in the fence. They would dig out the cups in the green, and they'd put sticks in the hole. And there was no rakes for the bunkers, and the golf course got to be a real mess. And you'd end up with like 5 locations on the greens, because people didn't want to hit to the same location all the time. And I think that was really a big downfall, and the conditioning was difficult to come back. And so, that was a tough deal going forward until, the whole renovation in the 2000 range that got it back in shape. So they just sort of kept putting Band-Aids on it, and older equipment and maintenance workers that got a lot of gruff for not doing a lot of work, but they weren't given the tools or the training of how to do it. And I feel bad for, how they were a bit bad-mouthed over the years for it being their fault, but the city just didn't have the experts to do it in a real championship mode.
Oh, I see. But it was beautiful. The course looks so beautiful.
Yeah, and one of the things that they've done, even since the 2000 renovation, they've not allowed carts on the fairway. And the city of San Francisco, being very liberal and protective of the environment, they do not allow a lot of the normal chemicals and nutrients or fertilizer that other golf courses use. And they rely on more of natural substances and natural care to the golf course. And so they've always considered it fairly fragile, and they've never allowed carts on the fairway back to the 2000 renovation because they know that, okay, in 18 months or 2 years, we have a professional tournament coming. We want it in good shape. So they were always very cautious to do as much as they could to keep the fairways in good shape so that it looks this way for a tournament.
All right, let's take a quick time out. We'll be back talking to John Abendroth, PGA, about the 2020 PGA Championship here in San Francisco at Harding Park. We'll be back right after this. Hey, this week from Smarter Podcasts, on our other golf podcast, Golf Smarter Mulligans, there's no better time to discuss your course management skills after watching TPC Harding Park eat the best players in the world alive. Our guest is PGA Tour instructor Sean Hogan, talking about strategy from tee to green.
I would say in my time watching amateurs, the two things that stand out are course management and inside 100 yards. Sometimes you see a player with maybe a not so great skill set, but they have certain shots in their bag that they know they have, and they don't always go to them. A classic would be they're warming up and they're flushing their 3-wood. Maybe it's a 15-yard slice, and certainly if you do miss a fairway, you probably have a shot at least advancing it up green side. So really it's a case of getting a player to understand what they've got in their bag currently from a course management and strategy standpoint. I feel if a player can play from 100 yards and in, they've got a game. I mean, if you can put it on the green from that one-putt range, it makes a huge difference. And so course strategy and short game, really, for the recreational golfer, learning some solid, fundamentally sound shots, you can really see a difference in your score.
That's episode 69 featuring PGA Tour instructor Sean Hogan, being released this Friday. Both Golf Smarter and Golf Smarter Mulligans are free and available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please subscribe and hear brand new episodes of Golf Smarter each Tuesday and great golf instruction from our unavailable archives. It's Golf Smarter Mulligans every Friday. All right. Well, we just briefly touched on your journalism part, but what have you been doing for the last couple decades as far as golf journalism?
Well, we've done Hooked on Golf with my partner, Mitch Jurasich, on KNBR. We did it weekly for like 25 years, and then we've been a little bit on and off, and weekly show there where we would have at least a couple of guests and a guy named Tom Spencer that is Jim Nance's right-hand man. Not only is he his right-hand man, but he sits right next to him in the 18th hole booth. And Tom would have sort of insights for us. We did TV for 15 years, starting in 1995. And we were there in really the heyday of new golf courses being built. Saddle Creek up in the Sierras, and we did Bodega Bay. We did over 100 episodes, and we would showcase the golf course. We had great help from Grant Spaeth, who just passed away, USGA past president. He would do a rule and etiquette segment with us every week. And then we would record interviews with either famous golfers or people in the golf world, people like Vijay Singh and many professionals that we had access to. We'd go down to Pebble and record a handful of them. Reggie Jackson, the baseball player, and so we had an amazing run there, and we just called it a day here the first part of August of 2020. Just as changes have happened, and golf courses are a little bit struggling, but now they're kind of on a comeback. And then we've had our website, hookedongolf.com, which we've kept up to date some of the time, not all the time. And then I've been doing some Zoomcast interviews with, I did a couple of cool ones recently with Gary Player, Rocco Mediate, that live on YouTube. So, awesome. So I like to keep my hand at it, and, been a lot of fun to share things there. And so, really, really great stuff.
What is the YouTube channel that we can find your interviews with Rocco Mediate and Gary Player?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to create my own channel, but if you go to John Abendroth interview and then the name Gary Player, that you find it there, and really some fun interludes that are there. Also got very lucky with being an Olympic Club member over the years. Did 2 awesome interview sessions before the 2012 U.S. Open for the members. We had about 250 members for a night with Jack Fleck and Billy Casper, wow, who had won in those dramatic U.S. Opens in 55 and 66. So I was the Q&A guy and the MC for that event. And then the golf courses at Olympic turned 100 years old. And in 2018, we had a dinner where I was, again, the MC and the questionnaire with Johnny Miller, who had grown up as an Olympic Club member, and then with Nathaniel Crosby, who won the 1981 U.S. Amateur in a really dramatic fashion, kind of in his backyard where he grew up in San Mateo. So I've had a lot of fun doing a couple of those dinners and helped with a couple of the NCGA golf writers dinner at Pebble Beach and doing some interviews there. So very fortunate to have had some of those opportunities.
Well, Hooked on Golf is legendary here in the Bay Area. You guys have been around a long time, and a lot of people will go, "Hey, do you know about that show, Hooked on?" Yeah, I know about that show, Hooked on Golf. And I'm so glad I can help drag you out of the local radio, because it's only the San Francisco area that knows about it, right? Even on radio and TV. And I want to, bring you into the world of podcasting and YouTube, where you can find global audience. The downside, of course, to all that is that you can't have Bridges, Pontiac, and Hayward as a sponsor on a podcast because nobody's in Hayward, right? So,
yeah, exactly. And I'll just tell you a cute story along those lines. And you'll know the golf course when I bring this up, but when we were doing the TV show, which did air in various parts of the country in Maine, and the program directors would trade our show for like a motocross show from Detroit or something. And the golf course that I'm gonna tell you about called me and said, "Oh my God, we had a guy come here." He called up and said, "Hey, what are the directions to Northwood Golf Course at the Russian River?" And the operator there, Vern Ayers, said, "Well, you take Highway 101 and you take River Road and you follow it out to Guerneville." He goes, No. Which airport do I fly into? I live in Chicago. I'm coming for a convention, and I want to know which airport to come into. And sure enough, the guy showed up and played it because he'd seen it on our Hooked on Golf TV show in Chicago. So the reach and all of that. And I hear from old college friends and relatives throughout the country, and it's great to live in a media world that we do, where some of this stuff does travel more than just to. Was it Bridges Buick that's sponsoring us today in Hayward?
Exactly. I used to do commercials for them when I was doing stuff with the Oakland A's. I would do a lot of things for Bridges Pontiac
Nice.
in Hayward. And even at one point, Dennis Eckersley had to come to my house to record a commercial. And it's still like one of the legends of our family that Dennis Eckersley was at our house when he was with the Oakland A's. Well, you guys were inspirational to me to get this thing going, because the way I got the podcast started was I was initially doing a video that I called T-Tour, which is a shot-by-shot guide on how to play a golf course. And and the way you guys were doing golf courses, it was like, what's my target line here? What am I looking at? So I had the head pro, and we did one course as a demo. We did Wente Vineyards, and I was struggling to get people to buy into the idea. So I started doing this podcast, which no one had ever heard of. I had to not only to explain what a podcast was, I had to explain what iTunes was. This was in 2005. And it's like, now I'm going to do an infomercial about your golf course. We're going to talk about it. And then I try to pitch them on the video, and the video never took off, but boy, oh boy, the podcast sure did. And then I started getting emails from people around the world going, hey, really enjoying the podcast. Stop talking about local golf courses. I'm never going to play there.
We did our TV show from San Juan Oaks down in Hollister, which was the Freddie Couples co-design. And we were there for like the media day, and we got to play the golf course a couple weeks before it opened. And it was going to open on, I think, a Thursday or Friday. And the show aired on Tuesday night, the premiere, and then it would rerun a couple times. And the guys were in the golf shop at 8 o'clock at night with pizzas and beers, and they were stocking the shelves, putting the shirts and the pants and the hats into their racks. And all of a sudden at 8:05 or 8:10, the phone started ringing off the hook, and it was because our show had aired, and they took like 35 or 40 tee times in that first half hour that the show aired. And like I say, we're really lucky to have golf courses like that opened. We did the new course at Half Moon Bay when it opened, and we did a number of the golf courses up in the foothills that were new courses, Stevenson Ranch, and I think I mentioned Saddle Creek earlier. So our timing was just impeccable.
Yep. Hey, listen, let's take another quick time out, and then let's spend the rest of the time talking about the 2020 PGA Championship. We'll be right back. The 2020 PGA Championship was unique in so many ways, and I really don't know where to start. But let's talk about the young guns that came out of Cal, and ended up Colin Morikawa winning it. But there were a couple of kids that came from the Cal golf team. Is it surprising that youngsters were doing so well on this course, that they knew so well? Or was it surprising that there were so many that were in contention? I mean, I was blown away by seeing this inexperience looking so experienced.
Well, Colin Morikawa is a real unique story in that he's already won. This is his third win in just over a year as a golf professional. One of the big things is his caddy, J.J. Jakovac, who was a young man out of Napa who played high school golf with Johnny Miller's kids. Very, very good player. Went to Chico State and played junior golf around the area. He played with my son, Michael, and he is played Harding a number of times back in his junior days in the SF City Golf Championship. So I think that's a big thing for him to know the golf course and the weather and such. Colin had played the golf course about a dozen times before. Stanford, when they were remodeling their own golf course, hosted the Goodwin, which is their host golf tournament at Harding. And so Colin played Harding Park under competitive conditions under the current layout. And so, he had a bit of an advantage over players from around the country like the Jordan Spieths of the world. The other thing that I think is very interesting that's happening is with the COVID shutdown and no galleries,
That's where else I wanted to go, was the fact that nobody was on the course.
Right.
How different that was.
Something that I've been an observer of is that players like, let's say, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, even Jordan Spieth, have been used to playing in front of big galleries, and even in times where if they hit through a green, the fans would stop the ball either intentionally or unintentionally, and the bleachers, the way they'd be set up, would block a ball from getting into big trouble. But then you bring out the current players like this Matthew Wolff and Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, who did not play a long part of their career in front of big crowds, that playing with no crowds is more of what they're used to. And I think that's a very interesting dichotomy here of partly why I think you're seeing some of the young players with a great success.
So you think that the lack of crowds hurt the experienced, the veterans?
I'm not sure I'd use the word hurt to go quite that far, but let's just say that they've been so used to it that it's a whole different thing for them, which may in fact hurt them or at least hamper them a bit. And that's very, very possible. And certainly it's that way for maybe some players, but not others. Maybe you look at a Brooks Koepka that seems to be, a little bit more of an introvert versus an extrovert, like a Phil Mickelson. And so that's what Dr. Abendroth, the psychologist here, would think of some of these players.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that you call Phil Mickelson an extrovert, I was thinking to myself, that's an astute observation.
Yes, easy one.
It's about as obvious. It's about as obvious as the grass is green. Yes. And then he's an extrovert. Yeah, there were moments, even at one point, I don't remember when it was, I didn't get to watch on Sunday. I was driving all day Sunday. But I did come home, and at 10 o'clock at night, I turned on the last 3 hours and I watched the ending, and it was spectacular. Do you remember ever having that many players that close to a playoff, let alone to winning it, at the end like that, going into a Sunday after the back nine?
There was 7 players tied at one time with about maybe 5 holes to go, 4 holes to go for some of them. And I'm sure it's happened. I haven't looked it up in the history books, but, really, really interesting. And you'd say that, okay, something big's going to happen. During the weekend, especially, there was a lot of long putts made. There was a lot of chip-ins, bunker shots sank. Bryson DeChambeau sunk a 95-foot putt. There was a 45-foot putt sank, a 50-foot putt sank. So you knew something, or you sensed that something big was going to happen. And here it was Colin Morikawa that did it twice. One other retrospect on Colin went to all 4 years at Cal. And in an era like this, where he played on the Walker Cup team and was winning a lot of college events, very rare for a player to graduate and play 4 years in this day and age. He graduated from the Haas Business School. And so many of the players turned pro after a year or two, but his caddy, JJ, called him an old soul. He said he's like a 40-year-old out there, very calm, a lot of wisdom, a lot of patience, compared to, you look at Bryson DeChambeau, who is almost seems like ADD, and he's gets agitated quickly. He went to 2 years of college. And he's changed his physical presence by gaining a lot of pounds and a lot of strength, hitting the ball, swinging really hard, and even broke his driver this week. So really different. And I think a champion at a tour event, a major championship, is, I think, really more of a Colin Morikawa than a Bryson. You got to be so patient to play these events. You got to be a plotter, not a sprinter with big muscles.
So you're not. I'm just assuming, putting words in your mouth here, but by what you're saying, you're not a big fan of the direction Bryson's going.
Not really. Even coming into this week, I thought a player like a Webb Simpson. I think it was about Friday that I said, Colin Morikawa's got a very good chance. And then I even evolved into Saturday saying I think he's going to be your winner. But especially on a golf course like this, that, the harder you swing, the more offline it can go. And there was a lot of trees, the rough, the canopies of the trees to have to hit under them. And you saw a lot of players, Phil Mickelson had to play the fourth hole from the fairway, and you saw a lot of that happening. And I think in the end, Dustin Johnson hit it offline on a couple of the last holes, I think number 12 and number 14, where he missed the fairway that cost him bogeys. And here he ends up, I believe, 2 shots out of the championship. So it came down to players that could hit the fairway. And Paul Casey, who was right there, is a fairway hitter. Colin Montgomery is a real straight hitter. Colin Morikawa, is a real straight hitter. And that's what you need in major championships. And, that's what you had at Harding Park.
They kept talking about, as the back nine was progressing, and the announcers, especially the main analyst. Why am I blanking on his name?
Nick Faldo.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Nick.
Sir Nick. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sir Nick. No, but they kept talking about something's going to happen big. Something's going to happen big, and chipping in like Colin did on 14. That was like, oh, that's special. That's different. But on 16, driving the green, it was amazing, but not really a spectacular. The way chipping in off the green or hitting a 285-yard shot and eagling the hole, it was done 185, whatever. But I would think that 7-foot putt that he had on 16 was a harder putt to make than the 95-foot putt that Bryson made the day before.
Yeah, and I think he's really the epitome of, and this has been a long sort of over-analyzed, thing in golf is, take it one shot at a time. Don't let the atmosphere or what you're doing, affect what you're doing. But like I say, take it one shot at a time. And, he just focused in on that and, just did really, really well. I think another shot that was a big, big part of it that's earlier in the round was the 8th hole that was playing the par 3, one of the toughest golf holes on the golf course during the whole championship. They had it playing at like 252 yards, I believe. Really shallow green, crosswind, a big grass bunker, a tough bunker. And he hit a 5-wood about 25 feet on that hole and made a very easy par where a lot of the other guys were struggling. Dustin Johnson hit it left in the rough on the short side, didn't get it up and down. And I think that was a hole that really maybe got him a little extra confidence that, okay, I've got this one out of the way. And then 9, which was the other one of the hardest holes, he got through that, and then he hit the 10th green in 2 and 2 putted for birdie. So a couple of interesting stretches there in addition to the marvelous chip in and hitting the, really exquisite drive on 16 and then the great putt.
Yep. I want to talk about the equipment used, but we're going to take another time out and we'll be right back. John, I was reading an article this morning that was talking about the guys in the ping truck. There was a run on 7 and 9 woods for this golf course. The way Harding plays, the way it's configured, what differences did guys have to make in their bag to adjust for playing this course for this event?
Well, these were small greens and the rough, and you want to hit the ball high. The winds didn't turn out to be so strong that they couldn't hit like a high, 5-wood or 7-wood or 9-wood to get the ball well up in the air. To hopefully land the ball softly, like the shot I mentioned a moment ago with the 5-wood that Colin hit on the 8th hole. It's a downhill hole, and the wind coming left to right that, would potentially, eliminate the ability to stop the ball on the green. But he did so because he hit it so high. And I think that's a big part of it. It played as a par 70. So you had 2 par 5s that were, reachable for most. But I think the small greens, because of the age of the golf course, it's an older golf course, 75 years old. And, the design in those days was to build the greens very small and round. And they kept most of that aspect when they did the remodel in the early 2000s. There's only about 4 greens, I believe, that were changed dramatically in the design. Number 12 was made into more of a kind of a serpentine green with some gnarly undulations. The 3rd hole was changed with much more undulation. 18 was adapted up near where the old practice putting green was, and they extended the hole there and made that green very difficult. And then number 16 was made different with different hole locations. But the rest of them were somewhat flat, round greens where, just like I say, old-time designs. And in the case of 16, 17, you walk off the green to the next tee is only about, 15 or 20 feet. And in Paul Casey's situation, he stood on 17T, being, I think, a shot back or even tied at the time, and he watched Colin hit the ball, roll up there 7 feet. So interesting for the competition. Had he had to walk 75 yards and not see that, it might have changed how he would have played his tee shot at 17. But, interesting how that works out.
Yeah. I don't, it's interesting because I know the course. I've played the course many times. It's my favorite San Francisco golf course. I don't know if TV was able to do it justice, because there were holes, especially 14, you just don't get how the elevation change on that hole goes down and then back up. And so many guys kept hitting it right. And I'm like, I do that every time. It's like, oh, I've been there, in that thick stuff. And I think that it's a shame that you really couldn't tell what was going on the golf course. 10 is not as straight as it made it look, because these guys were cutting it short by the long drive. So you miss that spot where you have to go around it. There are a lot of dog legs in there. And so I don't think that everyone got a real good sense, from my perspective, of how tough that course can really play. And the greens, they were struggling to figure them out a lot of times. They were just missing lines.
Yeah, and, one thing I think they did show relatively well, which, I'm a big fan of from some of the other parkland golf courses in the area, are these, what I call chutes, where you hit between the panels of trees, like number 5, where they lengthened it well back into the Fleming golf course to make it longer, that the alleyway to hit your tee shot to the fairway were very difficult. 7 is the same way, and you had a number of players who hung balls up in those trees. Justin Thomas did one. I think Jim Herman did one on 16, trying to land it through there. And the way these cypress trees lay is they have these layers of branches that come out, and, they're almost like a mattress. You hit the top one, and then it falls lightly to the bottom. But, I agree. I mean, it's difficult with the probably restricted number of cameras that they had out there. Although I thought 14 was kind of fun in that, that left gully that is there, that number of players hit in the left rough, and they had a camera behind them, and you could really tell how tall it was there, because you couldn't see the green from where they were hitting, and neither could the player. And so, that's always been a really tough hole, and it starts this just awesome stretch. When you come around 13, which is a much more difficult hole now compared to the old 13, they hung the green out to the left a little bit more in the redesign from the original layout, and they were able then to stretch the 4th hole back closer to where old 13 green was, which was a true dogleg right. Now it's a dogleg right tee shot and sort of a dogleg left second shot, which is rare on a par 4. And 13, you hit into the wind, and then you play all along the lake coming in from 14, and just an awesome stretch. And for Colin to play that stretch in, I guess, a couple under par was tremendous. And that's where you had to really sustain yourself to have a winning score.
One of the things that I didn't see here, which when you play there, it's just in your head all the time, especially when you're on 14, 15, you're going along that stretch along the water there, is the gun range on the other side of the water still open? I didn't hear the popping of the guns. Usually you're just hearing pop, 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 pop.
Well, there's two different situations over there. The public shotgun range was closed a few years ago, and they're redeveloping that into a different use. But the one that's still open is the police pistol range, and they use it for training for like the FBI and the sheriff's department. And I think what they probably did was, Mayor Breed called down the hall and said, "Hey, you guys need to take the week off and not do your training." Okay. But a little side story: if anybody's watched the Dirty Harry movies with Clint Eastwood, that when he did a session there to find out who the bad cops were, and the little cardboard people would pop out of the little buildings, that was filmed at that location at Lake Merced at the police pistol range. So that's kind of a cool old story. But I remember during the City Golf Championship, especially, those would both be still open, and sure enough, you'd hear the pop, pop, pop. But those were shut down because of the tournament, and then the other one shut down for a different use of that property by the Rec and Park Department.
Huh. You know what? I usually would be done by now, but I have too many more questions. We're going to take another time out. I got more to ask you. I'll be right back. Well, I've told you many times about Radio Baseball Cards, which is now a podcast. Short shows with the greatest baseball players of the 20th century, telling stories about their lives in and out of baseball. Our host of the show is Hall of Fame pitcher Don Drysdale. This is a show that was created in 1987, but we're still playing them back because these stories hold up, because it's part of history. It's part of baseball. It's part of baseball history. Please subscribe for free wherever you get your favorite podcast to Radio Baseball Cards. And here's a taste of what we're going to hear this week.
Here's another Radio Baseball Card. Since 1979, Willie Wilson's played center field for the Royals, minus 4 months he spent in jail on drug charges.
The toughest thing for me was getting off the drugs. Other than that, I really can't think of anything. Everything was pretty much else easy.
John, when was the last time you played Harding Park?
It's probably been about a year and a half.
Okay.
Played in the Willie McCovey Memorial Tournament. That's a fundraiser for the Giants Community Fund, and actually sat with Willie at his table. The couple of his friends are mutual friends of mine, and so it's probably been a couple of years that I have played there.
Okay, I played there last year, and they were already in preparation for this event, and the fairways were narrow. They really tightened them up, and even the rough was brutal then. And we played from the whites, and I was happy to walk out with a 93. I'm like, wow, this is, which is lately has been a high score for me, but to walk out of there with that one, now I can't wait to go back. I cannot wait to play there again. I loved watching a course that I was familiar with in a major.
And let's give a little golf tip here that
Please.
I think for the average player that's, let's say, even a 10 up to a 20 handicap, when you see a golf tournament like this, don't play from the back tee, because you're going to end up hitting 3 woods to these greens where the players were hitting, 7 irons, 8 irons, 9 irons. play from a more forward tee, because the big difference in the Fred Greens of the world compared to a Bryson DeChambeau is the distance of your drives in many cases. So play from the white tee, get yourself up there where the green is reachable, and you can hit a reasonable club, be it a long, a short hybrid or a 6-iron to a green, and you're going to then have much more of the same experience rather than, playing from the back tee where it's probably more like par 80. So if you shot 93, what's your handicap? Are you about a 12?
No, I'm a little lower than that these days.
Okay. So, but you playing and shooting 93 was 13 over par of the par 80 versus if you play from the white, it's a more reasonable experience. And I find too many players play from the wrong tees in that case.
I am a huge advocate of moving up forward because so many times I'll watch a PGA Tour event and they'll go driver wedge, driver 8-iron, right? And we're playing, and if we play the blue tees or a little even farther back, we're going driver 3-wood, driver hybrid, right? To get that second shot. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why are we making it more difficult for us, and they get it a little easier? Why can't we go driver wedge, driver 9-iron, driver 8-iron? But on this tournament, it was so great to see these guys having long second shots on so many holes, and they were par 4s.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you one other little tip, and it's not so much about playing the golf course, but about equipment. Bryson DeChambeau uses a 5-degree driver. And, as word of that gets out, that, the low handicap, 5, 6, 7 handicaps are saying, oh, I want a 5-degree driver. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to hit the ball like 6 feet off the ground, and they're not going to get any carry. The ball needs to get launched up in the air. And it's a rare person that can use a 5-degree. That's what these long drive contestants use. And, with these balls now that don't spin as much, the new, what used to be 9-degree, 9.5 degree is a common, range for a low to mid handicap. Now it ought to be like a 10.5, 11, 12-degree driver because you're going to get more of the launch effect and be much better for how your play would be off of a driver.
Who do you think is going to have more influence in the long run in the next generation of golfers? And we're talking 10, 15 years out as the youngsters are watching an event like what we just witnessed this past week. Are they going to be looking more towards a Bryson going, okay, I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to, lock my arms in and lock my shoulders and create all this tension in my body, which just I get upset when I watch it? Or are they going to be more of a plotter, like you were talking about, Colin, and an old soul? Where do you see the future youngsters coming up, admiring, going, that's what I want to be?
Well, I think Colin is the one to follow. And, I said like 24 years ago, 25 years ago, I said, if Tiger Woods kept swinging the way he did, that he's going to hurt himself and not be able to play, into his 50s. And I think I was right by him now having, 4 knee surgeries, 3 or 4 back surgeries. You look at Jason Day swinging out of his shoes, and it's just not sustainable. And now you look at Bryson, as hard as he's swinging, I just can't imagine that he can hold up like that. Can you imagine Bryson DeChambeau at 40 years old swinging like that? There's no way that he can do that. But you look at Steve Stricker, who played in this tournament, he's like 52 or 3 years old. And you look at some of the, the classic swings like the Freddie Couples, who's still playing into his mid 50s or approaching 60. I think that it's going to be more of a Colin Morikawa type swing that the players should follow and be an influence, and especially in his calm demeanor, his patience, and not the impatience that here we keep beating up on Bryson, but he's such a an example of, in my case, of what not to do. He gets agitated with rulings, and he gets more rulings needed because he's hitting it along the fence lines and into the trees where the fire ants live and where the fences are. So, you're not going to need many rulings if you hit it in the middle of the fairway like Colin's doing.
Is there any buzz that you're getting on the from people around the tour that Bryson's juicing, or is it just he's worked out like a madman? Because I can't imagine be juicing. It's just too obvious.
Right. And, I see certain things that they're doing that are probably legal, but they're probably on the edge. They're now, a lot of them are using these CBDs, the cannabis derivatives. Tiger Woods is chewing gum that they say is his special gum. My speculation is it's a CBD, which I guess part of it is to keep you calm, help with some of your aches and pains, and I'm seeing a few other players do that. And I don't know what's in these energy drinks that Bryson is doing, but I understand it's mostly from working out, but
wow.
Who knows? I think a lot of them are doing some of these, these energy drinks, and maybe some of them have a boost of some sort that, you see them drink out of a water bottle when they pull a water bottle out of their bag, and it's got funny colors in it, blue or pink or green, and it's not what I buy at the grocery store.
It's not Gatorade?
Well, it's different stuff, and
yeah.
It might be some kind of an energy thing that is allowed, but maybe on the fringes of the legalities. And they do testing, they do blood testing and urine testing periodically for certain things, but some of this that's legal, they're using, and it's fine. So
wow, I did notice Tiger chewing gum. I was like, Tiger's chewing gum. Have I ever noticed that before, or has he just never done it before?
Yeah, and I've studied this a little bit because I've got aches and pain, and
sure,
it's interesting. One company that I bought some product from, that they have 3 different categories. I think it's called pain relief, calm, and one other category.
Focus?
But
is it
focus? Yeah, exactly. So it's it's interesting how technology and a lot of this stuff ends up zeroing into the golf world, because golfers will try anything. They'll try
anything.
The magic golf ball, the brush tee that you're not gonna get the backspin off of the brush, and the old days.
Be careful where you go on this. We've got a lot of partners on this show that have products.
Before the innovation and entrepreneurship, if you will, players would tee it up on a pencil. And it was hard to get it on the pencil, but once you did, and it didn't have the eraser on, just the flat top of the pencil, that you wouldn't get backspin off of that pencil. And I'm going to get 3 more yards or 8 more yards, and it's like, really? Come on. So,
well, I've had sponsors, CBD sponsors on the show that are targeted for golfers.
Yes.
So I didn't know that it was crossing over and leaking into the tour, but makes sense to me.
Well, there's a handful of players that are sponsored by these companies, and you see them in ads, and it's some of the guys that are, in their 40s, not so much the guys in their 20s, and
sure.
It's the guys that are trying to, I guess advantage is the right word, but just like the rules of golf, you want to know them to kind of use them to your advantage, not your cheating.
Right.
Right. And a few older players have said, to the people using the CBDs, you better be careful, because if you go into certain states or certain events and you get tested, and the test comes up a little bit odd, that it could be a problem. But if you use a good quality one, like the ones that your sponsors, I'm sure, are, that I think it's going to be somewhat of a thing of the future. I mean, heck, how many guys are using Advil and Tylenol and and all that? That's certainly a help to many players.
Yep, absolutely. John Abendroth, PGA, it has been so much fun to talk to you again. Great to see you. Congratulations on an amazing career. I don't think you're really hanging them up, but Hooked on Golf is going to be fading with the sunset.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, just pivoting, and I'll still be out there doing some stuff and enjoy.
Well, definitely you should go to YouTube and search John Abendroth and Gary Player and get that Zoom conversation that he did. You'll find that one, and also another one with Rocco Mediate. And just why don't you go ahead and subscribe to that channel when you find it, because there's going to be more coming from John as he progresses in doing more interviews, and we'll get you back here as well.
Cool. Fred, thank you so much, and good job with what you're doing. And don't grip the club tight. Don't swing hard. Let the club head do the work, and that'll help you out down the line.
I want to take this moment to thank all of you who entered our drawing for the brand new custom fit Edison Wedge, courtesy of Terry the Wedge Guy Koehler and EdisonWedges.com. We had tremendous response for this club, and unfortunately I can only offer one wedge at this time. But stay tuned, because throughout 2020, as we announce more giveaways, I'm hopeful that we'll have more fairway woods from highheatgolf.com, putters from SeymourPutters.com, used balls of your choice from Two Guys with golfballs.com, and of course, custom-made wedges from EdisonWedges.com. But today, let me send out some congratulations, because we have a winner of an Edison Wedge, and that's Christian Aguilar from Kathleen, Georgia. Christian, congratulations. I'll be sending you an email and copying Terry Koehler so that you can discuss exactly what you want from your brand new Edison Wedge. Did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode with Dan Martin? He introduced us to the Pro Swing Training Aid. As I also mentioned during the show, I was away for a week's vacation and played the course where Dan teaches, Rustic Canyon Golf Course in Moore Park, California. Now, being in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area, it's amazing to find a golf course with that much beautiful open space surrounding the property. As long as you know where you're going, and I was lucky to have a course regular in our group, you can get to the greens. But the greens, are they brutal, and I coughed up way too many 3-putts because I just could not figure out the speeds. But before the round, Dan and I got together so that he could give me some instruction on how to really groove my swing with the Pro, and we recorded that short session on video. So take a look at it, because it's available right now on our youtube.com/golfsmartertv channel. And I'll also put a link in today's show notes for you to get there. And if you just want to go to the blog post at golfsmarter.com, I'll include the video. Anyway, our next giveaway is going to be the Pro Training Aid, courtesy of danmartingolf.com and or swingthepro.com. But if you just can't wait, then pick one up for yourself with a 20% discount when you mention Golf Smarter at checkout. The episode with Dan was published on last Tuesday, and I played there on Wednesday. And when I went to say goodbye to Dan after my round, he was incredibly impressed that a number of you were already taking advantage of that 20% discount with the checkout code GolfSmarter. Now, as far as this prize, I'm going to add to it. So I'm giving away the Pro, but I'm also going to add the Claw Golf Club, which I'm using exclusively now. Now, you can pick one up for yourself with a 15% discount using Golf Smarter at checkout at their website, caddydaddygolf.com. Deadline to enter to win the Claw Glove and the Pro Swing Training Aid is midnight Pacific Time, 3 a.m. Eastern, Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. And then I'll announce your name as the winner on episode number 755. To enter, please go to golfsmarter.com and click on the Enter Now banner at the top of the page. And finally, my offer for a free copy of Tony Manzoni's video, The Lost Fundamental, which is only available from Golf Smarter anywhere in the world. I keep getting emails saying, hey, I've been looking for Tony Manzoni stuff on the web and I just can't find it. Yes, that is true. You cannot find it because We were really the only place that Tony was featured, and so you can get his book. The book is still available on Amazon, but the only place you get the video is right here from me. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give you a free copy of the video. And all you have to do before the end of August, this is running out of time. So all you have to do is please write an honest review about Golf Smarter or Golf Smarter Mulligans in Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe to these shows. Then once you write the review, share it with me via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or email, and I'll send you a link to Tony's Lost Fundamental video as my thanks for you being a Golf Smarter ambassador. It doesn't take a lot of time for you to write it, and your continued support is truly, truly appreciated, and I look forward to hearing from you. To report your podcast review to me so that I can send you the video, please use @GolfSmarter on social media, or just click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.